Dexter Morgan killed 149 people, and his world was defined by secrecy, precision, and a strict moral code. Harry's code. It was highly complex, but it boiled down to two main things: don't get caught and never kill an innocent, meaning only killing other killers. He managed a careful balancing act, convincing everyone around him that he was just another quiet, if somewhat strange coworker. Yet over the course of the show's 8 seasons, 15 people discovered the truth that Dexter Morgan was, in fact, a serial killer. But who were these people who stumbled upon Dexter's darkest secret, and how did they react when faced with this monstrous revelation? Test your Dexter knowledge by dropping your list in the comments and see if you're right by the end of the video. Harry Morgan. Dexter's adoptive father was the architect of the entire moral system that guided Dexter's killing career. As a respected Miami homicide detective, Harry recognized early on that Dexter harbored violent impulses, starting from childhood when Dexter exhibited disturbing behaviors like killing animals. Rather than seeking conventional help, Harry decided to steer Dexter's urges into a twisted form of vigilante justice. Harry taught Dexter to kill only those who themselves were murderers, who slipped through the system, thus protecting his son from the police and his own uncontrollable desires. By the time Dexter was old enough to kill, Harry knew exactly who Dexter was and what he would become. Yet Harry's decision to nurture Dexter's lethal tendencies came at a heavy price, ultimately leading Harry to question his own moral compass. He watched in horror as Dexter began dismembering a victim, realizing the monster he had forged. Overwhelmed by guilt of the monster he created, Harry took his own life, leaving Dexter with a code but also with unanswered questions and simmering resentment. This always leaves me wondering what would have happened had Harry not killed himself in the moment. Harry knew Dexter was a serial killer before anyone else, and in doing so, he shaped the very destiny that would haunt Dexter for the rest of his life. Brian Moser, also known as the Ice Truck Killer, was Dexter's biological brother, both having survived the same childhood trauma, witnessing their mother's brutal murder in a shipping container. Brian tracked Dexter down as an adult and toyed with him, sending cryptic messages and staging grotesque murder scenes. Eventually, Brian revealed himself not just as the Ice Truck Killer, as Dexter's long-lost brother. Overjoyed to learn that Dexter also harbored homicidal impulses. Brian knew Dexter was a serial killer because he recognized the signs and understood the darkness they shared.
I don't have to imagine.
In a chilling moment, Brian offered Dexter a partnership, urging him to embrace their primal instincts and kill Deborah Morgan together. This forced Dexter to make a choice between the code Harry taught him and the biological bond with Brian. Ultimately, Dexter chose Deb over Brian, ending his brother's life and preserving the code. Brian's knowledge of Dexter's true nature had threatened to drag Dexter into unrestrained depravity, leaving Dexter simultaneously relieved and heartbroken when their connection ended in blood. Dr. Evelyn Vogel, a neuropsychiatrist who worked closely with Harry to design the code, knew about Dexter's tendency from before he even took a life. She had helped Harry craft the guidelines that shaped Dexter's murderous career. Years later, Vogel returned, openly calling herself Dexter's spiritual mother. She understood his darkness intimately, viewing him as a successful product of their joint experiment. Unlike many who discovered Dexter's secret in shock or horror, Vogel felt pride, admiration, and even fascination. She believed Dexter was a perfect psychopath adhering to a righteous code, and she encouraged him to accept who he was. Vogel's knowledge offered Dexter guidance, but also confusion. If she viewed him as a model patient, what did that say about his humanity? Ultimately, Vogel's presence forced Dexter to reassess his entire moral framework, proving that a person's reaction to knowing his secret could run from terror to clinical approval. However, Vogel's bond with Dexter came to a tragic end when her son, the brain surgeon, who shared Dexter's dark inclinations, murdered her.
Evelyn? Oh, no.
Detective James Dokes was a seasoned law enforcement officer with an uncanny instinct. From their first meeting, Dokes sensed that something about Dexter was off. Unlike their colleagues, Dokes refused to accept Dexter's mask of normalcy and began tailing him, catching unusual behavior and inconsistencies. Over time, Dokes found compelling evidence linking Dexter to the Bay Harbour Butcher killings. Dokes actually confronted Dexter at a remote cabin, shouting in disbelief, "You're the Bay Harbour Butcher!" as he stared at the blood slides and kill tools that confirmed his worst suspicions. Dokes' discovery put Dexter in a dire predicament. Rather than kill Dokes outright and violate the code by murdering an innocent, Dexter chose to frame Dokes as the Bay Harbour Butcher, locking him away in a cage. Tragically, before the standoff could resolve, Lila West intervened, killing Dokes in an explosion. Though Dexter never wanted Dokes' death, the detective's knowledge of Dexter's secret demonstrated how perilously close Dexter came to being unmasked by the law. Do you think that Lila should have killed him? Comment down below. Lila West was an enigmatic figure who entered Dexter's life under the guise of an NA sponsor, fascinated by his darkness. Though Dexter initially used Narcotics Anonymous as a cover for his addiction, Lila sensed his underlying intensity. After their affair ended, she became even more obsessed with him. She dug into Dexter's life, discovering the cabin where Dokes was imprisoned and learning that Dexter was the Bay Harbour Butcher. Instead of being horrified, Lila was captivated. She killed Dokes, imagining she was freeing Dexter from exposure. Unlike others who discovered Dexter's secret, Lila embraced it fully, hoping to become Dexter's partner and muse. She longed for the connection that Brian Moser had once offered. Dexter, however, viewed Lila's twisted devotion as a threat. He ultimately killed her in Paris, bringing an end to one of the few people who accepted him completely as a killer. Lila's infatuation and deadly intervention reinforced that knowing Dexter's secret often sealed one's fate. Jordan Chase, a motivational speaker and leader of the Barrel Girl gang, figured out that Dexter and Lumen were hunting down his associates. Although Jordan never discovered Dexter's identity as the Bay Harbour Butcher specifically, he understood that Dexter was a practiced killer. Jordan's calm demeanor cracked when he realized Dexter wasn't an amateur and that their confrontation would end in blood. He addressed Dexter directly, acknowledging the darkness behind his eyes. While Jordan lacked the intimate knowledge of Dexter's code, he knew enough that Dexter was a killer who would stop at nothing to protect Lumen and eradicate evil men like himself. In their final confrontation, Dexter and Lumen cornered Jordan, with Dexter making it clear that he was no mere vigilante dabbling in violence, but a seasoned hunter of monsters. Jordan's death cemented that those who recognized Dexter's capabilities understood they faced not just a man, but a finely tuned predator. Lumen Pierce was never intended to discover Dexter's secret, but their paths crossed when Dexter rescued her from Boyd Fowler, a serial rapist and murderer. Lumen witnessed Dexter killing Boyd, immediately realizing that Dexter was more than just a hero. Instead of turning him in, she sought Dexter's help to exact vengeance on the group of men who had tortured her. The unexpected partnership forged a bond built on shared trauma and a mutual desire for justice. Throughout their killing spree, Lumen saw Dexter's ritualistic approach firsthand. His plastic-wrapped kill rooms, his careful selection of targets, and his unwavering focus on murderers who escaped justice. In Lumen, Dexter found acceptance, not unlike Lila, but grounded in genuine empathy. She knew who he was, but understood his code and motives. However, once their enemies were all dead, Lumen's need for revenge faded, leaving Dexter alone again. Her departure left Dexter with a sense of loss, confirming that even those who understand can't always stay. Lumen was the first person to discover Dexter's true identity and not end up dead. Comment below who else discovered his secret but did not end up dead. Miguel Prado, a charismatic assistant district attorney, befriended Dexter after his brother Oscar's death. Initially drawn together by tragedy, their relationship deepened when Miguel witnessed Dexter holding a bloody knife at a crime scene. Although Dexter tried to cover, Miguel deduced that Dexter was more than just a forensic analyst. Intrigued and morally compromised, Miguel offered Dexter a dangerous partnership. He would provide Dexter with targets he deemed worthy of dying, thus taking justice into their own hands. Miguel believed he had found a kindred spirit, but he misunderstood the discipline and code that Dexter lived by. When Miguel killed Ellen Wolf, an innocent defense attorney, Dexter saw that his friend lacked restraint and honor. Realizing Miguel could not be trusted, Dexter was forced to kill him to protect the code and his secret. Miguel's discovery of Dexter's true nature proved that simply knowing his secret was not enough. One had to respect the code or risk destruction. Nicholas, an elderly man suffering from dementia, learned Dexter's secret in a highly unusual circumstance. When Dexter visited Goad for information related to an old case, the disoriented retiree mistook Dexter for an old friend and initiated a casual conversation. Feeling oddly safe in this moment, Dexter confessed that he was a serial killer, knowing Goad would forget immediately due to his advanced dementia. It was a fleeting, surreal confession where Dexter finally got to say out loud who he truly was. This moment, although brief, mattered. Dexter released a tiny portion of the weight he carried by admitting his truth, even if his confidant's memory would reset moments later. Nicholas's knowledge was fleeting and inconsequential, but it demonstrated how desperate Dexter was for any form of release from secrecy. Even a man who could not remember offered Dexter a strange form of relief, as if speaking his secret into a void. Deborah Morgan's discovery of Dexter's secret stands as one of the most impactful revelations in the series. Deb walked in on Dexter in the act of killing Travis Marshall at a church altar, shattering her world. Up until that point, Deb admired Dexter, loved him deeply, and looked to him as her moral compass. Learning that her brother was a serial killer forced Deb to confront a horrendous moral dilemma. She was a cop dedicated to justice, yet her beloved brother was a murderer who had been operating under her nose for years. Deb's journey after this revelation was a downward spiral of compromised guilt and heartbreak. She tried to make Dexter stop killing and tried to save him when discovery loomed, and ultimately took an innocent life, Maria LaGuerta, to protect him. Deb's knowledge was a festering wound that never healed, leading to resentment, depression, and tragedy. Her love for Dexter could not withstand the horror of his actions indefinitely, and her knowledge sealed both their fates. Isaac Serco, a high-ranking member of the Koshka Brotherhood, discovered Dexter's secret in the course of avenging the death of his lover, Viktor Boskov. Isaac realized that only a meticulous killer like Dexter Morgan could have taken Victor's life so cleanly. Piecing together clues, Isaac confronted Dexter, acknowledging his lethal skill. He recognized Dexter not simply as a random vigilante, but as a seasoned professional killer, someone who possessed a genuine threat, even to a hardened mob boss. What set Isaac apart was his understanding of Dexter's code and complexity. In a rare moment of empathy, the two killers found mutual respect. Isaac saw that Dexter was not a mindless murderer, but a man guided by principles, however twisted. Their deadly dance ended in violence, yet the respect they shared lingered. Isaac's knowledge highlighted that those who recognized Dexter's secret sometimes saw beyond the monster, glimpsing a man with a code. Hannah McKay, a killer with her own dark past, discovered Dexter's true identity while strapped to his kill table. Dexter planned to kill her after confirming her role in several murders. However, instead of following through, he released her. Hannah and Dexter formed a relationship built on mutual understanding and acceptance of their respective darknesses. Hannah knew Dexter was a serial killer, and she not only accepted it, she found it thrilling and comforting. Their bond was unique. Hannah's knowledge of Dexter's nature never inspired fear in her. Instead, she saw him as a kindred spirit. Unlike Lumen, who sought justice, Hannah embraced killing as a necessary tool. With Hannah, Dexter dreamed of a future where he could live authentically, free from hiding. Yet even this acceptance was fragile. and fate would intervene. Still, Hannah's reaction showed that discovering Dexter's secret could also mean companionship rather than repulsion. Lieutenant Maria LaGuerta's suspicion of Dexter grew after she found a bloodslide at Travis Marshall's crime scene, reminding her of the Bay Harbour Butcher case. Methodically reopening the investigation, LaGuerta connected overlooked dots, eventually becoming certain that Dexter Morgan was the real Bay Harbour Butcher, not Dokes. Although Dexter tried framing her and discrediting her, LaGuerta's relentless pursuit led her to confirm Dexter's identity as a serial killer. LaGuerta planned to expose Dexter publicly, believing justice demanded it. She confronted him, confident in her evidence. But in a devastating climax, Deborah shot LaGuerta to save Dexter. LaGuerta's knowledge cost her life, demonstrating that discovering Dexter's secret was a double-edged sword. Either you accepted it, like Hannah, or you faced dire consequences for trying to bring him down. With LaGuerta gone, Dexter believed his secret might be safe, but he was wrong. Zach Hamilton was a troubled young man with homicidal urges, much like a young Dexter. Dexter considered killing Zach after discovering the boy's involvement in a murder, but he recognized a spark of himself in Zach. Instead of eliminating him, Dexter chose to mentor Zach, teaching him Harry's code in hopes of steering him toward a more controlled, ethical form of killing. In this process, Zach learned Dexter's true nature. He understood that Dexter was not just a killer but a disciplined one who followed rules. Zach's knowledge represented Dexter's attempt to pay forward what Harry had done for him, but without the parental bond. Zach accepted Dexter's secret as a roadmap for his own urges. Tragically, Zach died at the hands of the brain surgeon before he could fully embrace or reject Dexter's teachings. His brief understanding of Dexter's nature showed that not all who know the truth live long enough to find their moral footing. Finally, we come to the last individual on our list, the brain surgeon himself, Oliver Saxon. Oliver Saxon, known as the brain surgeon, gleaned insight into Dexter's true nature by assessing Vogel's files and observing Dexter's behavior. Saxon understood Dexter's meticulous methodology and recognized him as a fellow killer who posed a direct threat. Though Saxon never shared Dexter's moral code, he appreciated Dexter's skill and resilience. Their final showdown in the hospital interrogation room revealed two predators testing each other's limits. Saxon's knowledge of Dexter's secret was coupled with disdain. He viewed Dexter as a pawn Vogel created, a competitor in the realm of serial killing. Saxon's arrogance and cruelty set him apart. In their final confrontation, Dexter killed Saxon in what appeared to be self-defense, impressing upon Miami Metro a final masterstroke of deception. Saxon's death reinforced that knowing Dexter's secret often meant a violent end, as Dexter allowed no rival killer to survive. From Harry Morgan's paternal guidance to Deborah's tragic heartbreak, from Lila's obsessive adoration to LaGuerta's righteous pursuit, everyone who knew Dexter was a serial killer left a significant mark on his life. Some tried to harness his abilities for their own ends, some begged him to stop, others demanded justice, and a few tried to join him in darkness. Their knowledge tested Dexter's resolve, forced him into moral quandaries, and stripped away the illusion he built around himself. In the end, knowing Dexter's secret was a dangerous privilege that few survived and none emerged from unscathed. How was your Dexter knowledge? Did you get all of these right? If you enjoyed the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.